Hey, sorry, it
Oh,
was buried in the other big long chat GPT email, so I didn't scroll down far enough to see the link.
oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
No,
Um,
okay.
so before we start, I feel like I just want to go through it because there's a
Yeah,
few things that chat didn't quite
totally.
capture. So I was
Okay.
like, I want to just sort of peek at it and
Yeah.
just, I think it's more around changing the wording and tone.
Yeah, I guess it was amazing. I usually like add anything. I'm like, I don't think I have anything to add. That was pretty darn amazing. But
Well, and after, like, basically after our conversation on Friday,
yeah,
um, I guess it was later on in the day
yeah,
because, yeah, but later on in the day, I just sat down with my computer and I just like barfed out as much as I could remember from our conversation.
yeah.
And I didn't even do it in a way that was like trying to be anything other than just
Yeah.
barfing it out. Like, this is what we talked about. This is what I think. This is what Leah shared. This is everything. And then it was
It's
like,
crazy. Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I look at my last email and I say, welcome to Sister Science Stories, da 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 da. I liked the fact short, joyful, research-backed micro breaks designed to help you reset your body in just 5 minutes. I really, really liked that. Leah and I go way back to our days of teaching fitness and yoga in school gyms and rec centers. Do you think that's applicable?
Mhm.
Where she was already making fun, goofy, and making movement fun, goofy, and accessible to everyone, no matter the background or skill level. Yeah.
Yes, but where is that? Do I have that? Oh wait,
Okay,
there's
so
like
hang
two
on.
different versions here, I think. Okay. Is that like both of your stories?
So I sent one that was like a Zoom link,
Right.
and then I sent us
Oh,
another one after
oh,
that.
I see this one. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay, I see it now. Yep. My
So actually, I gotta take it. Okay, here we go. Now I'll be able to make changes to it.
hmm. That's I think that captures all the stuff we talked about.
I mean, really, is today's episode for anyone who feel hopefully I can talk, who feels stuck behind a screen, exhausted by hustle culture, or unsure how to care for their body in small, sustainable ways? Is that what we're trying to say?
I mean, I think y- yes, but is there a better way for your audience? Like, is that resonate with the Sister Science audience, or is that too kind of mainstream?
Well, I think that last line down at the bottom where it says, whether you're at your desk, commuting, or doing the dishes, we hope this conversation reminds you that movement is medicine and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's our main message right there. Movement is medicine. So basically, I went back to the very first like offers. It said, you do you want to do this one, this one, this one? Here's
Right.
three
Right.
topics. And I sort of
Yeah.
was like, I feel like we're a mashup of the movement is medicine piece and the reclaiming the power of 5 minutes,
Yeah.
like that sort of deal. Um, and then I mostly talked about your backstory around your professional backstory.
Okay.
I don't know, like, is there a piece here of your personal backstory, or is there a way that, like, because where's the piece that is interesting is sort of like when you brought yoga into your portfolio, what shifted? Like, that would be one of my big questions. Like, so when you added yoga to your portfolio of what you know, like about the physiology, what did that do? And that would be, that question isn't quite in here, but I want it in here.
Yep.
So that might go down to healing and personal growth. And instead of those three questions, this is where I think we're going to change some of the questions.
Okay,
Like, I don't know if we're going back to the fit chick days.
right. Yeah, no,
Or,
I think,
yeah, it might be in those three questions, but instead of me saying, take us back to the fit chick days, what drew you to movement in the first place?
right.
Maybe I'm going to,
Um,
I think my three questions then are going to be, what drew you to movement in the first place?
yep.
And then how has your philosophy around movement evolved since yoga got added to it?
Okay.
But I say modality or lens, and then I don't even know. And then and then my last question will be what inspired you to create what you're doing now?
Yep.
And then it said actually in one of the things it said, now let Leah geek out.
Right. Yeah, I saw that.
Wasn't that good?
Yeah.
It was like, now let Leah geek out. I'm gonna go find that little piece because it's like Leah
Yeah. Nerd
said,
out or
let her
something.
nerd out.
Yeah.
The science and the
Um,
philosophy. I think I'm even going to go down to that one where it says let this voice matter because
yeah.
really that's where we're doing. It's like the opening your story, the science and philosophy, and the cultural rebellion and the healing in the voice and the call to action. Like I think that actually where it says can you scroll on yours and go down
Yep.
to what says your voice matters, structuring the conversation?
Way down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's almost what I'm going to do. Like the opening is this
Yeah.
set the scene and then talk about your personal journey and then let you nerd out. And then, like, I like that even idea of cultural rebellion.
Yeah.
Do you have two screens as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm looking up, but I'll look at
Yeah.
you.
No,
Yeah.
I'm using my two screens as well
I
today.
actually have three, which isn't super helpful because I haven't figured out really how to use the third one other than when I'm writing, because then I have what I'm working on, the notes, and then my like whatever my actual product kind of thing. So, but yeah, I two is more than enough.
Yeah. I'm not very good at even two.
Yeah.
So I might basically what I'm going to do then is that I'm going to lead us through those sort of your story, the science, the cultural rebellion, the healing in the voice, and I might scroll down just to give myself little like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
questions. But I
Yeah.
also find that with me, my questions come very organically,
Yeah.
and if I just follow that sort of arc, I don't need to go down and below and be like,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't have to ask the question the way it is there. And I also don't necessarily think one of the things that it picked up on was this idea that you used to be in a school gym and now you're in a boardroom. But
Great.
truth
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
told, for you, you've been in boardrooms since day one. So you
Yeah.
just that's not really the yeah. Does
There's
that
another.
does that feel like where you want to go today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I feel like yeah, we'll just run with it.
Okay, I'm just gonna lift my screen so that when I look up to my computer.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just look at this one. I won't even look at the questions because then otherwise I'll start overthinking it too. I just laugh though. Do laugh when I listen to your podcast and like try to picture what's her name? I never remember the names. The Ayurvedic. You were talking about the kapha
Yeah,
season
with
and all.
Hannah.
Yeah, yeah, with Hannah. And I was like, well, we'll just go with this and it'll be a whole different conversation and it'll
But
be good.
yeah, I think that's important though, Leah, that it's not. it's not, it doesn't have to be the same sort of wording as, or
Right.
the same sort of language that this, because, and I think maybe that's what I want to grab most of all is that you don't have to become this sort of granola going out and speaking to your nettles to decide which one is going to do it to do this healing work. And so maybe that's a piece of this is that you're not changing who you are.
Hmm.
You're integrating pieces of yourself even more deeply. And that the message here in Sister Signs isn't about becoming this like granola yogi. It's about becoming you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think
The
you're
more
doing.
the more the people in the community are themselves, that doesn't make me more like them. It makes me want to be more like take that joy and their authenticity, I guess, and let it empower me to be that for myself, if that makes sense, right? Like I'm not going to be a Kundalini yoga teacher, but man, do I love going to Kundalini yoga and like absorbing all of that, you know? And yeah, so I think, and the other thing is maybe it for people who know me listening, it also is a bridge into this world where they might be like, oh, it's too like out there. It's like, no, it's not. Actually, you need to be part of this, right? So it bridges that, I think, because I do think there is very different, there's so many themes in this work that show up in different places in business, in whatever, Pilates and fitness. There's so many themes that I feel like my brain is always making those connections. So hopefully what I can do is make those connections for other people.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Right there, that's exactly what you're doing. And you're going to offer a portal of entry into this idea that someone who's teaching Kundalini yoga won't be able to do. The population you can reach is going to be different than the population I can reach because of the way you speak, because of your background, because of your credibility in the fitness world. Yeah. All right, I just need to I'm not going to say that second one.
Okay.
I'm
I'm
going
not.
to talk about movement is medicine. And then I'm going to read. I'm joined by Lea Wiens, founder of movementmentor.org, a longtime movement educator. Lea is an advocate for physical literacy, the creator of movement snacks, short, joyful, research based micro breaks designed to help you reset your body and your mind in just 5 minutes. So Lea and I go way back to our early days of teaching fitness and yoga in school gyms and rec centers, and she was already making movement fun and goofy and accessible to everyone back then. So today, Lea, welcome to the conversation, and let's start with welcome to the conversation. What's my very intro question?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm
Oh,
yeah, maybe it's around like what drew you to movement in the first place?
yeah.
Lea, can you start off just talking about your relationship to that word movement? That's going to be how I start, okay?
Yep.
Well, that's how I think I'm going to start. I'm going to try for that. Okay. I don't like my ring light in my glasses,
Yeah, I can see the bit of a glare, but
but maybe I'll take my glasses off. Can I still see my
can you
computer
see?
screen?
Don't don't not be able to see. Good,
And then see if I can get rid of all the little.
right? I have all those too. Ugh.
All right. We're going to drop in, Lea.
Okay, cool.
Just shift ourselves. Bringing yourself right here to this moment. Feeling your breath move in and out of your body. Just letting go of everything that has come before and will need to come after this conversation today. Setting the intention to just be present to the conversation. Respond to questions and offer questions from a really deep, authentic place. Knowing that our goal here today is to bring forth the information that is most helpful and supportive for anyone listening. And most of all, it just really honors the alignment that Lea and I both feel with this concept. Another deep breath. I'm asking AI to stay with us today. And make sure I have record pressed. Yeah, we're recording. Okay.
Are we on? Oh.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right, you guys, welcome back to Sister Science Stories. Today we are exploring the idea that movement is medicine. This is an idea that is like deep in the heart of both my guest today, Lea Wiens, and myself. So Lea is the founder of movementmentor.org. She's a longtime movement educator, an advocate for physical literacy, and the creator of Movement Snacks. And these are short, joyful, research-based micro breaks designed to help you reset your body, mind in just 5 minutes. I love this idea. Lea and I go way back, and we used to be teaching fitness and yoga in school gyms, but both of us come up against this really like hard idea that people have in their minds about what movement is and what it has to be. And really, both of us are passionate about the idea of breaking down that stereotype and letting movement be accessible to everyone. So, welcome, Lea.
Hello. Great to be here.
I wanted to start by asking you to just chime in on that. Tell me about your relationship to that word movement.
Honestly, it makes me smile when I think about that question and how it's always just been a part of my life. I feel very fortunate that I don't think my parents realized it, but I was kind of a multi-sport. Like I tried lots of different activities growing up, and from dance and gymnastics to baseball to figure skating. We always had fairly active like vacations and things like that. And I remember we moved out to an acreage when I was maybe grade six-ish, something 12 years old or something. And I would like take an old bike that I don't even know if we found it somewhere. It was just like an old rickety, like 5-speed bike. And I would just go riding down the country roads. And I just remember feeling so free. And I don't think I internalized really what it meant. I just knew that I loved it. And so I've always enjoyed movement. And then when I was 16, I was a lifeguard. I was always loved the water. And I became a lifeguard, and then I was asked to teach my first aquasize class when I was 16 years old. And I was so nervous. I made like my mixtape off the radio, so push play on the cassette and stayed up all night like rehearsing and making my routines and kind of using a model of the instructors I had watched from the deck. And I've loved it. I was just hooked. Like I just the smiles on the women's faces, like that feeling for me of full mindfulness of just being present, the banter back and forth, even the fact that I got to, take an extra half hour to kind of shower off and it was getting paid for that. Like it was a way to break up my shift, but invigorated me. And I think I was just hooked from there. And then I went on to do a phys ed degree and became a fitness instructor, taught classes all the way through university, and yeah, it just evolved from there. But the one other piece of that was I knew I guess I intuitively knew, but I hadn't acknowledged it for myself what I really wanted to do. And then I took this class called health promotion. I didn't even know what that was. And it was like this instructor talking about, yeah, like how to prevent like health issues and how to enhance people's lives through physical activity and health. And I was like, that's a thing. Like, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm doing. And then I got to went through like focusing on that through my degree and then worked in an active living center called the Be Fit for Life Center where I got to promote the benefits to schools, communities, workplaces around. And I mean, I was 23 years old and man, I like made so many connections and got to just live that live that dream of celebrating physical activity every day and joy. So I think it's just in my blood. And I do feel very fortunate in recognizing that not everybody has that privilege. And I think I was just really lucky. So I want to hopefully try to influence others with that joy of movement and what it can bring to your life.
That is definitely how I perceive you. Excuse me. Just like that idea of movement is accessible, it's fun, it's should be for everyone. So what's the biggest stereotype that I think we come up against around what people believe about movement that makes it so that you can just keep preaching this since you
Sure.
were 20, since
I
you were
think
16 years old, you can still be preaching the same line. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of that all or nothing perception, that fit fast first mentality. Like if you're not the top, and high performing and puking your guts out because you're working so hard, then it's not even worth doing. I think it's hard to balance that in a group where maybe, someone like I do like to work out hard and I do like to push myself, but I also like to lay down on my yoga mat and do, yin yoga and like exploring what your body needs as opposed to that external societal pressure. And I think people put themselves in a box of whether they're an active person or they're not, versus it being something that's essential for our health and our lives, right? Like
Yeah.
it's in when we talk about physical literacy, I remember talking to a group of women who were working, and it was mostly all women who were working in daycare centers and day homes, and talking about how like movement skills aren't, they need to be taught. Like some kids, sure, are natural movers, just like some kids naturally can pick up reading, but it doesn't mean you don't teach them that. And we put kids in a box of like, oh, well, they're never going to be athletic, so we're not going to bother with them. And one of the ladies actually said that. She's like, I didn't realize that. She goes, I literally do that. Like I'll be like, oh, yeah, they're not a good mover, so we're not going to bother. Versus like, here, we can teach you how to throw, we can teach you how to hop and land on one foot and balance and feel the joy of movement so that you can have that as a capacity for your life, right? Like our bodies and our minds are connected. And if we don't keep those pathways like nurtured and growing, then we're not going to achieve our potential.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
there's just the fact that you can go back to your 20s, let's say that was 25 years ago.
just say maybe.
Just say, and just the idea that I don't know, that it's the same message and the translation of that message into our culture is sort of hard. It's like there's this little bump, it bumps up against a mindset over and over and over again. You mentioned yoga. What shifted when you brought yoga into your paradigm, into the lens that you see movement through?
I think it just brought it to light. It made me more aware of the benefits I was already getting and gave me a new language for it. And I think um, when I was going through a separation is when I discovered alchemy yoga. Like I had done some yoga, different mindfulness practices over the years, and but then I became a regular participant and just found it very healing to be in the community, to be able to just kind of shut that door, feel safe, feel do something for myself, and um, let all the emotions kind of move through me. But I think it, I don't know, like it's going to sound really funny, but I will often feel like if I'm really enjoying a yoga class, I will often like feel this love for the instructor. I'm like so grateful for them to be able to move me in this way. I don't know, it's so weird. But anyways, I feel like it's given me a language to lean into and communicate all the things that I was already feeling, but it made me more aware of them, and that would amped it up so I could just get more of that. I don't know. It's
Kind
kind of
of like another layer to that health promotion class that you had in
great.
university,
Yeah,
and
like
just
we talk
opened you
about
up
mind,
to,
body, spirit, physical,
yeah.
mental, social health. But if you look at the definition of health, it could be the exact same definition of like physical activity or movement, right? It's like your capacity to live life to its fullest with reserves to, you can carry out your daily activities, but you have a reserve left for energy and vigor and to show up as your best self for the people around you. And if people are working out and beating themselves down, they might get the opposite of that, right? They might just feel burnt out, or they might feel like a pressure to strive for more as opposed to using it as a tool for enriching their lives.
Yeah. So part of it is being able to shift your reason for doing movement. And how do you teach people about that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's creating awareness. So I think prompting people in a class to think about it a little bit differently. And, when I give a modification to choose, I try not to label it as higher, harder, easier, right? It's just more this, which one works for your body. But will often acknowledge when there's 3 or 4 different versions of something going on in a class. So people are empowered by like, oh, you made a choice that was different. You didn't feel like you had to do what I was doing to keep up with me as the instructor. And so I think, and sometimes just knowing that I'm not perfect, I'm like, I'll sometimes mess up my cues in teaching fitness and being more, not on purpose, but I think I'm more accessible because I'm not a perfect instructor. So that little bit of goofiness and be able to laugh at yourself helps to break down that barrier a little bit, I think. So
Yeah. It is around messaging, isn't it? And I think that's one of the things that how you stand out for me as in that fitness world is that your messaging has so much to do with sort of the whole being, the whole story of health. And it's not just the physical activity for physical reasons. Like you're bringing in that idea of movement. And yes, there's physical benefits for it, but it also impacts your mental health, your emotional well-being, your capacity, your vitality, some of those other words that you were using. Yeah. Like that's where movement becomes it's essential for us. And you're providing that portal of entry for people who otherwise might not find it accessible to figure out how they can move.
yeah, and I think about the idea of breath body that you introduced through the Ayurveda and your review, and I love that. Um, Sitting down going, okay, what does my body need today, as opposed to being a slave to a program because this is what Pinterest told you to do, or this is what your trainer told you to do, or whatever it is. That idea of like, what does my body need today? I think it's so powerful. And then, it but I think people still struggle to know what to do. So then also being to be able to create that clarity around the actual practice that you're using around it.
And your current methodology through movement mentors is the idea that it's not about no pain, no gain. It's not about go hard or go home. It is about movement snacks. So I want you to nerd out a little bit for me right now, Leah, and I want you to tell me like about these movement snacks. Like,
Love it.
what's
Yeah,
the philosophy? What's the science there?
awesome. Um, so I was joking about this. I did a um, webinar the other day, and I was thinking about this. And yes, I've been working, like I said, since I was 16 in this field, and I've done taught fitness classes, taught like athletic training for athletes. I've done a bunch of different certifications, yoga teacher training. Anyways, like all the evidence around it, and it's kind of makes me laugh that now I'm like focused on these 5-minute movement snacks as like the culmination of this career and my kind of knowledge, right? And it feels a bit, maybe it's frivolous, and I feel like you might dismiss it, but honestly, like the research is insane. Like there was a so as I actually found it through the term came from, oh, what's the name of the book? I'll find it for you, but it's like a book about running, and they were talking about taking these breaks. They had a very holistic approach to it, and like taking these breaks throughout the day. And me going from teaching and being very active in my lifestyle and in my career to more of a seated desk job, I started to notice impacts on myself and realizing I needed to get up and move around and take care of my neck and my shoulders and just even for my mental health. So started digging into research, and this research at Columbia University, they enlisted, after like sharing it on a podcast, like 20,000 people who signed up, and they're people who were mostly at their desk jobs, and they tried these breaks either every 30 minutes, every hour, or every 2 hours, and it was measurable impacts, like just walking at 2 miles an hour. So basically just getting up, walking like the speed you would walk up to go get a coffee or something for 5 minutes, 5-point reduction in your blood pressure, like 40% reduction in blood glucose. I mean, those two, the rate of like diabetes and sort of metabolic issues in our society. If you could just get people who are inactive to do that 3 times a day, like your risk of like health issues, your longevity, it increases dramatically. Not to mention then most everybody reported benefits in improved mood, improved energy, improved productivity. I did a pre and post survey with a company that I just did a movement snack challenge with. And yeah, they across the board, the results were amazing. And then we did live movement snacks, which increased that social connectivity then because they're people that all work remotely. They got to see each other goofing around and dancing or doing stretching or everything online. And so we know that we talk about sitting as the new smoking. So even if you work out, if you sit for the rest of the day, you're still at the same health risk as someone who doesn't work out and sits the whole day. So even that's where I'm like, okay, these maybe we should do a shorter walk in the morning with my dog and then split the rest of the walk out into 3 5-minute or 10-minute chunks throughout the day, because it's better for me overall. It's better for my coworkers. It's better for maybe getting chores done. Who knows? But the thing is, in 5 minutes, you could decide what you want to do. You could become more fit. You could be flexible. You could do mindfulness. So I'd put a spin on it that way too, where it doesn't have to be movement. Maybe your nervous system needs a break because you've been on back-to-back meetings. So maybe you slow down. And then the other thing that I brought in with this is so much influenced by yoga is that stop and check in. Like we just did a check in before this call, and then there's research on the science side to talk about this idea of pause and reflect. So when you're changing gears or after a meeting, stop, take 5 minutes to absorb what just happened, write some notes, take your key takeaways down, then move on to the next thing. And so that's been integrated into the movement stack. So I feel like it's just like a really fun and sneaky way of building in so much we learn about through Ayurveda and through yoga and just through, yeah, positive lifestyle. So yeah, it's pretty
That's I think that's one of the things I love most about you is that you make it fun and accessible. And like you said, the word sneaky. It's like, I'm going to make this kind of like, you're not even going to know that there's benefits happening because it's going to be fun. And in our society, we don't equate fun to productive or to helpful or something like that. Even the way Even the way you said, I can't believe the culmination of my career is a 5 minute movement. Yeah, because we've been taught that it has to be big. It has to take a long time. It has to be go hard or go home. It has to be painful or and then you're reducing it. And I'm see even the word reducing has a
Yeah,
connotation to it, but we are simplifying it to an idea that is easy, digestible, simple to apply, fun, and you're connecting to your own body. You're asking yourself what you need. You're connecting to community. I really liked all of those. If
yeah,
Ayurveda's main goal is to digest, then what you are creating then is these times of your day where you stop ingesting and you put in place something that creates powerful digesting. Because that's really what we do all day long in our culture right now. We just ingest. We take in information, we take in information, we take in information. And as much as our body needs to get up off this computer and go move, our mind and our cells need processing and ability to like move that information through and digest it. Yeah.
it's huge. And then even like the connection between your stress and movement, like your when you activate your core muscles, right, it helps like stimulate your brain, the reduce the impact of the cortisol and like adrenaline, and so it helps us to actually process all those stress hormones and not have yeah, and have a reduction in that. So I mean, it's the mind and the body are, as we know, right, so closely connected. And then I think it's just maybe we don't need to convince people, but we need to get them to try it so they can experience it for themselves. Because I think the other challenge we have in this society is we know a lot. And we used to say, if you know more, you do, if you know better, know more, you do better. But it's not true because of our brains. They sabotage us and keep us in our patterns. And we need to break those patterns. And so when we do this with the company that gives you permission, or even in your family, like anybody can do this, right? If you just create as a couple, like I don't know, I think about my parents. They sit and read most of the day. Like if they set a timer for every 50 minutes and they got up and walked around the house, together, they could do that, right? So it could be anything, but I think it's just creating this I'll use your word, a container to support this habit, to create accountability, create motivation, make it fun, make it worthwhile. And then you get to stop and reflect, because what I do is go do a notice, so do a body, mind, and productivity or energy scan before, and then they do it again after the movement snack. So then they can try to start to notice. Again, your awareness is the best agent of change, right? I mean, it's such a vehicle for all the stuff that we talk about. Yeah.
So it's embodied knowledge, like you're really helping people do the check-in before and after so that they understand what just happened and they can feel it. They can feel the sensation of like, oh, that just like gave me a pickup. That was like, I
Yeah.
mean, people would equate it to drinking a cup of coffee, or I guess young kids would be like, that's when I need my energy drink or something like that. But it is, it is that easy, and we have not been taught. I think that's where the sort of cultural rebellion is coming in, where we've not been allowed to believe that it can be simple. We've not been allowed to believe that it can be easy. And I'm much more likely to self-sabotage if you tell me I have to do a really hardcore, sweaty workout for an hour and a half than I am if you tell me I just need to, like, really, are you going to self-sabotage if you just need to do 5 minutes? You're much less likely to do that self-sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, like, just why this idea of like slow or short or silly, slow, short, silly movements. Why does it matter sort of right now more than ever? Or why is right now the time, I don't know, where I think finally we could break through the cultural barrier against this idea?
Yeah, well, I think actually, as we were talking about reflecting, I used to think about that with my kids a lot when they'd play sport and they'd be like, "Oh, I don't feel like going to hockey practice today," or my daughter would be like in a bit of a mood before and then after. She was always it's so happy and in a good mood. And I would try to point that out to her. Like, do you notice how good you feel after you've been moving? And I think that's like the biggest piece of this. If say maybe we're self-conscious about our bodies and we don't want to go out in public and see people. Like I have people in my yoga class that want to stand in the corner because they're afraid someone's watching them. Like, but everybody's worried about themselves. They're not what, but that's a big deterrent for people, right? That we not all of us are confident in being seen moving for a variety of different reasons, right? And so um I think when you do it this way, it's like, well, you're behind your desk, you can turn off your camera and you can stretch and then think about how you felt. And now we focus on the movement, the feeling, as opposed to a judgment or as opposed to an outcome that's like something related to the physical, whatever, muscle development or things like that. And some people may want to focus on the physical. Some people will appreciate the, you know, the mental side of it or the slowing down part of it, right? And then notice, or you notice like I can think clearer, or the issue I had before, the problem doesn't seem as insurmountable as it did before. So it's just like connecting the dots. And I do think it's important. Like I just started a Pilates teacher training, and Joseph Pilates says if if the if everyone in the United Nations could do all five of my core exercises, then we would have world peace. And I actually think honestly, how many people in their lives, there's these driven type A, go, go, go. It's frivolous to do a walk and talk break, or it's like, we're not going to take, I think it's culturally slowly becoming more acceptable, but it's not, it's not part of our culture to stop and reflect and learn what we've like, and or to take care of ourselves, right? That whole self-care
Yeah.
piece. So I think, um, we can do it and it actually enhances our productivity as opposed to taking away from.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you just said so much in there. There's a novel called How Yoga Works. I know
Mm.
the title of it makes it feel like it's a different kind of book, but it is actually a novel. And it just talks about the idea of the repeated action of doing yoga and how these people's lives transformed. And they just became better humans and more productive and more helpful and more better for humanity. So I also am an advocate of the idea that if you could do Joseph Pilates' five core movements, we'd have world peace. Yeah. There's a piece around how we are measuring this movement bit and teaching people to connect with it. Whereas before we might have had people do movement and then measured it in terms of speed, height. Like the outcome would be something very physical, like how much could you lift? How high could you jump? How far could you kick the ball? Like very physical outcomes. I think even like of the beep tests that my kids would have done in fitness classes in school. And now the way you're framing it is that you're not framing it on those kinds of outcomes. You're framing it around how do you feel? Is your mind clearer? Do you feel more relaxed? Did your stress levels reset? And that's perhaps where we're in a time and place in society right now where people are realizing the importance of that answer, of those answers.
Yeah, and it's not to say there isn't a place for, fitness and like setting goals. And I think if you want to do that, it's just again the mindfulness around it, right? So that sort of balancing out piece that you want to achieve these goals. But I think if you looked at even Olympic athletes or professional athletes, I mean, they have an entire team around them that supports their nutrition and their hydration and their mental health. And they're not going to be successful if they're only focusing on, how much they can bench press or how fat. Like we fall apart if we aren't attending to all of our needs. So if the physical is the vehicle or a vehicle, um yeah, A is like I think that noticing, and then B is like then we seek out the types of movement strategies that will help us, yeah,
Yeah.
within.
Well, and the body is the portal of entry. Like the physical body in yoga, when they talk about the layers of your being, the Anamaya Kosha is your physical body. And it is the most gross, the most obvious, the most practical knock on wood. We can feel it, touch it, like experience it more than the more subtle layers of the body, definitely more than the mind or the emotions or the, those pieces, the intuitive, that is more ethereal pieces of this connected body. But this is our portal of entry. So our relationship with it matters. And that's where movement is so important, because this body gives us so much data, so much intelligence about how the being itself is doing. And so I like that you can still go measure your bench presses or measure your speed or measure your distances, but be mindful about the impact of all of it.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and when we look at like what do physical activity guidelines say? What does the longevity research say, right? It doesn't say we need to go work out 10 hours a week. It says 150 minutes, do some light, low intensity walking, maybe a little bit of high intensity stuff just to kind of stimulate the nervous system and the like our physiological system. Do some strength training, huge, right? And then yeah, like take care of ourselves socially. Like I think the social part is a completely, it happens unintentionally where, I did teach that fitness class, you helped sub a few times, like those women were there to see each other. They
Yeah.
came back because they wanted to go for coffee after the class, right? And yeah, they got fit and they, were healthier physically, but I think some of them are still like friends and go to each other's weddings and see, it's like we discount that piece, or we don't measure it. We don't talk about it. And even like on F45, like it's such a tight-knit community. They're there for hardcore fitness, but actually they're a very close community, right? And so it's that social element that keeps you coming back. Yeah.
So what is your biggest like invitation? I don't know if it's like an invitation or just like you want to grab someone by the shoulders and shake them and tell them a message. Or maybe you'll be nicer than that and be like, "Come on, come try this." Like what do you want people to take away from this message?
I mean, I think it's a self-reflection piece of your own relationship with movement and what are the stories you're telling yourself, right? Oh, I used to be like the top athlete in high school, so what's the point of me doing a 10-minute, 5-minute movement snack? I need to go all out hardcore workout or else it doesn't count, right? And so like changing that relationship. So I think it's exploring your own relationship and also having an open mind of trying something new and seeing what happens. It's that test and learn idea, It's just like let's try it and see what happens. No more of this like yeah, again, this sort of whole rigid um like structured piece. I think it's like find what works for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well,
So
and I was gonna say one other thing is like you can, speaking of nerding out, like you could nerd out on you know, Lance Armstrong's physiologist and like go down this rabbit hole of like, I'm gonna do this work and it's gonna maybe make me 1% better. And yeah, there's those people who want to train in those zones, but for the most part, I think we just want people to like move and whatever it is good. Like every little bit counts and more is better. That's what we used to say, right? And so you don't need a big plan. You can easily, reach out and we can come up with some ideas, some simple routines. But I think you start with something and then build on it. And that's
yeah.
why 5-minute movement snacks are perfect, right? Oh, maybe I'll do yeah, a little strength circuit today. And maybe the next day I'll focus on my core or I'll focus on back extensions or maybe I'll do housework as fast as I can. Like, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not about like how many calories you're burning. Oh my goodness. So this has been a very interesting one. And I, struggled a little bit with like body image as a kid growing up and that idea of calories in, calories out. I mean, you could eat in one bite what you could burn off in like in an hour of exercise, like if it was some high density dessert or something like that. So I think we need to get rid of that idea. And it's been very empowering for me to get rid of that idea of, oh, I'm going to exercise to burn calories. So I need to do so much versus I'm going to exercise because what my body needs and how it makes me feel and how it helps me help other people as well. So
Yeah.
that would be another good one to explore. I'm not giving you one simple answer because I think it's different for everyone. Um, yeah,
But I think that's one of the biggest invitations here is to check in with your own story around movement. And is that story true? And is that story serving you right now? Is that story currently helping you? And what could you be curious about around any of the ideas that have sort of been dropped here today? Yeah.
absolutely. And you see, like I see this a lot with people who are kind of gym fit, where you ask them to, yeah, like do a
Touch their
dance
toes.
move or yeah, no, or do something that's a little creative, like yeah, like do a line dancing move or do a yeah, touch your toes or like anything. And then there's like a wall that goes up and there's a really interesting identity that we have around ourselves, I think. And I think that's like blow that open. Like, can you move laterally or is everything you do in a front and back plane? Like, you think of a triathlete, they run, they swim, they cycle, everything's here. So can you do a grapevine side to side? Like what's going on with your hips there, right? Can you do, and I know the research and like people who train will they like evidence is starting to really advance in that, but I still think it would be how many hours of training can you do in a week? Can you reduce it by 10% and add in some of these holistic pieces? And so I think, yeah, I think it's just playing with it.
Yeah, I actually have to tell you, I think I might be guilty of not necessarily being gym fit, because that's not me at all, but I think I'm guilty of being yoga fit. Because I would also put myself in a category of in my yoga, in my story of movement, I was not the kid that was good at sports. I was the kid that was awkward and couldn't catch or kick or do those things. So when I found yoga, I was like really happy about that. And I think over my last 25 years, we'll call it since I discovered yoga, same as your 25 years since I was in my 20s, um, like I'm really comfortable in this modality. And I think that comfort also comes at a cost of feeling a bit foolish when I go outside of that zone. So it's exactly what you're talking about for those people who are gym fit. I have the same hangups, except mine are outside of my yoga modality.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to be able to um, say that out loud. Yeah.
Right.
Lea, we know we're going to have you do an offering inside the Sister Science community in the coming month. And I'm really excited about it because I know that you are going to bring the idea of community, of goofiness, of easy movements. You're going to make us laugh and do those check-ins of how we feel before and how we feel after. So I'm really excited to have you there. Is there anything you want to tease about your Sister Science offer?
Well, I don't know if we've fully teased it out. I definitely have some ideas. I definitely do love me a bit of line dancing. And I feel like there's some really simple ones that we could do where you feel this sense of accomplishment too if you stick it out, right? And I think that's another lesson we can be like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. It's too rigid. It's this, that. And so I think we'll see if we can break down some of those barriers, throw a little bit of that in, but there's always like playfulness for sure and so that social interaction. So I'm hoping we can even do it live so we can have some fun in person and yeah, build on our physical and emotional and social connections.
Love it. Okay. And can you tell us how to reach you, how to participate in your movement snacks? I know that you work a lot corporately. And so there's that aspect. If you have a corporation, if you have an organization, if you have people that could benefit from creating community and benefit from this quick and easy way to move and increase productivity, decrease stress, increase ease in the body in a work place, then connect with Lea. But how would you also recommend for the individual?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just reach out. And I have a few movement snack ideas on my YouTube channel So I'll share the link with you so you can share it in the notes if you want. And so there's just some ideas if you don't know what to do. I also have a 1 page handout that's like, here's some things you can do, right? Like, so we can talk about how do you schedule it into your day? Can you reach out to a buddy? Like all of those kind of habit forming things that we can focus on. But I think the biggest one that I heard was not so much sometimes you just need an idea of what to do. So yeah, getting up and walking around is great, but maybe I need to look forward to something. So I'm gonna put on a song and just rock out for 5 minutes, or I'm gonna, go grab my neighbor and go for a walk around the block or whatever it is. So yeah, so definitely working on some individual tools as well. And then if you have as a group, like it doesn't have to be corporate, it could just be, a volunteer group or a senior center or a school. I mean, I feel like these ideas really resonate, and even have me come do a live movement snack or do a Zoom live movement snack and just get everybody. It's a low risk way of doing it because some people will turn their cameras on, some people won't, but they can just lurk in the background and try it out. And yeah, so there's tons of ways that we can build it out for the individual as well as for a group.
Perfect. We will put that into the podcast show notes. We'll put the link to your YouTube site, and we will put this sort of 1 page suggestion how to set this up in your world into those notes as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you can watch for other things coming up. Like one of my ideas that's percolating is like creating almost like a weekly series where if you do these, it will check all the boxes of, the strength, the flexibility, the cardio, like sort of like a week plan of how you get your activity minutes in a healthy way, but obviously just more to seed ideas, like little 10-minute workouts that you could do, and then you can take those and pick and choose what you like from that. Because some of it is, sorry to keep going on here, but some of it is, we talked about this, is like if you don't try it, you don't know what you like. And I think the other piece is like you look at your lifestyle needs and your activity preferences. So am I a social person? Then why am I working out by myself at home? Or if I'm really like outdoors, why am I going to a gym every day? And so you match your activity needs with your personal preferences, and you're much more likely to enjoy it and look forward to it and do it. And so I think that's another huge piece of it. We could go on all day, but
Well, I feel like what you just mentioned is making me think of a whole new conversation I want to have with you. And that is that idea of this idea is percolating. So that's what sort of I'm so curious about is like how we as humans bring forth, how we bring into fruition the ideas, the things that are sparked inside of us and are our gifts to share with the world. Yoga's message is very much that whatever it is that you need to give to the world is also your own medicine. And that's what I find so lovely about you, Leah, is that you are living your dharma. You know what you're passionate about. You know what is itching to sort of be served up to the world. And you're always creating new ways to deliver that accessibly to your community around you. And that's what I'm so inspired by that. And I think that that's the piece that we know we're living a fulfilling life when we're doing meaningful work in our own bodies. And I think there's a quote, I might have to find it, but it's like, that which you're supposed to bring forth, if you bring it forth, it will heal you. And if you don't bring it forth, it will destroy you.
yeah. Well,
So
and I think joining the yoga community and taking the yoga teacher training was interesting because for a while, like I felt like I needed to kind of then start fitting the mold. So I remember I was rehearsing my practice teaching, and for my husband, he's like, you don't sound like yourself. Like I was trying to sound like you are. I was trying to sound like, one of the other teachers and have a very calm and like, yoga type flow. And that's not who I am. And that's not how my energy comes through when I teach. And so it was a really good awareness. Like I don't need to form myself around this, but I can use this as a vehicle to allow me and use, everybody else's authenticity that they bring through, but that's empowering me to do the same thing. It doesn't mean I need to look like someone else, right? And that's been the biggest piece for me, is like it's always been there, but to embrace it and not to tamp it down, but to just let it shine through, because that is who I am. And yeah, and like if you don't like it, that's okay too. But I mean, yeah, it is what it is, right? And it makes me feel so empowered. So Yeah, it's been
And
great.
it's important work. It is important work because there's a portal of entry for everyone into yoga. And there's definitely people who would hit a class. And as soon as they heard some of the woo-woo or some of the spiritual or some of the metaphors, they'd be like, I don't, it's sort of like being um fit healthy, like you go to these areas where they're speaking in a language that doesn't resonate with you, whereas you get to offer that same idea to somebody who wants it delivered sort of clean, fun, light, playful, and still very powerful and productive in your body. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
you can reach Leah at movementmentors.org and connect with her movement snacks on YouTube. Look forward to chatting with you again, Leah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill.